Hello and welcome to this FPL Game Week 21 team selection video with me, Holly Shand. Happy New Year. It's been a while since I've recorded a video, but this is a really important one going into probably the most difficult game week of the season. Make sure you like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Starting off with how my game week 20 went, and it was pretty well actually. I finished on 87 points, taking me up to 279k overall. That's my highest overall rank since about game week 10. So finally made some progress in what was a very tricky December to navigate. I brought in Gusto into my team for Lascelles, which turned out to be irrelevant, but I had 2 free transfers, so I can't be disappointed with that. Hopefully it'll be a better pick in the long term. Palmer got the game week off to a great start. Salah ended it spectacularly. I mean, I was worried at half-time when it was 0-0 and he'd missed a pen, but what a performance in that second half to net 32 points as my captain. If he'd only have converted that penalty in the first half as well, I could have hit the 100-point club, but I've got to be very happy in a game week where all of my attacking players return. That is a rare event in FPL, so I need to make the most of it. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of my transfer plans going into game week 21, there's a few things I want to discuss around strategy, because it is one of the most difficult game weeks of the season, because we've got the winter break, which is difficult to navigate, and we've got all these players that have gone off to AFCON and the Asia Cup, and we've also got a load of injuries as well. The first thing I want to highlight are the midweek fixtures, because game week 21, there's 5 fixtures in the first weekend and 5 fixtures in the second weekend for the winter break. In between those fixtures, there are 7 teams involved in FA Cup third round replays. 6 of those teams have their game week 21 fixture in the second half of games, so we'll play again in the Cup before they even play in game week 21. So that's one thing to really be aware of when you're making transfers this week. Now, in terms of how to navigate these fixtures, I don't enjoy the winter break because effectively we're going in blind with a lack of information for 5 fixtures. That covers 10 clubs. So I would avoid making a big points hits or playing any chips this week. It's a game week about survival, trying to get 11 players out, hoping for the best. Now, you may be in a situation where you've got so many flags that, you know, you have to make transfers or take a hit or two. But beyond getting 11 players out this week, I wouldn't be too drastic in terms of your moves, and I would look to try and pick a captain from those teams that play their fixture this weekend, because those playing fixtures next weekend, there's longer for things to go wrong, injuries to be picked up in training. Remember, the transfer window's open. Literally anything can happen, as we've already seen in the first week of the year. One of the big players that we want information on is Haaland. I guess the advice has been for the last 10 days, hold on with those transfers. That advice remains. Pep's press conference, I imagine, is Friday, 12:30. We'll see exactly. But we need information on, is Haaland fit enough to be in the squad for Newcastle United? Is he fit enough to start? Because that's quite prevalent when it comes to making our transfers and the captaincy decision. However, Burnley v Luton has been moved from the Monday night game to the Friday night game because Luton have got that FA Cup replay next week. So that now also means that there's not going to be as much information from City as we'd have hoped. We would have hoped for some leaks on Saturday morning to say Haaland's definitely in the squad or Haaland's going to start. We're not going to get that now. So it makes bringing Haaland back in this week, if you sold him when he was injured, more of a risk than it would have been. As I mentioned, we've got those sides involved in those FA Cup replays, which is going to make it difficult for those teams that play in that second half of game week 21. And the other thing I want to talk about is that information is going to be key going forward, which is why if you can roll a transfer this week, that would be very helpful. If we look at things that we should know by the game week 22 deadline, remember, because we've got this winter break, we've got the game spanning 2 weekends, then we miss a weekend of action for the FA Cup 4th round before we've got this midweek game week 22 deadline, which comes on the 30th of January. So why is rolling a transfer so important? Well, the January transfer window closes 2 days after the game week 22 deadline, but all those movers and shakers will have played out a bit more. You could find that one of your FPL players is moving clubs, certainly rumoured with Solanke. Is that going to make them a better asset or a worse asset? And are transfers coming into clubs going to mean that a player that you've currently got in your side is going to lose their place? Well, this is the sort of information that we may have in 2.5 weeks' time that we don't have right now. The League Cup semi-final first legs have taken place this week. It still hangs in the balance. The results of those fixtures will form the blanks in game week 26. We will know this information by the game week 22 deadline. We'll also have had the 4th round of the FA Cup fixtures, which will give us more clues as to how blank game week 29 will look. We're not expecting it to be as chaotic as it has been in recent years, but another round of information will give us more clues as to which teams will be involved or not in that big blank game week, the major blank game week that we're expecting this season. We could get an announcement of a double game week 25. We've seen 2 postponed fixtures already this season. Brentford v Man City, Bournemouth v Luton. Where are those fixtures going to fit in? Or will the blanks caused by the League Cup final in game week 26 create a double in game week 25? That's all going to help us with our chip strategy for this season. Many managers wanting to hold that second wild card and plan out when to use the free hit, triple captain, that second wild card as well. So we will have the bench boost as well to play, and we'll have a better idea of what game weeks we want to target for those chips once we know about these upcoming blanks. We've also, by the game week 22 deadline, we will have had the group stages of AFCON and the Asia Cup. Now, Salah and Son are players that we will want back in if they return. Egypt and South Korea, both favourites to go deep into the respective tournaments. But if there's a shock, we'll have that information. And if Salah and Son are back soon, then you're going to want to find ways to get them back in, or not even sell them this week and get that information for next week. And there's a few players that are highly owned in FPL that have a chance of making game week 22 that looks less likely for game week 21. Haaland, Trent and Bowen. Again, by the game week 22 deadline in 2.5 weeks' time, we will have more information on those as well. So putting all of that together, being cautious this week is key, not taking big hits, trying to get 11 out, no more. That's the strategy you need to be looking at, and hopefully rolling a transfer into 22 if you can. Let's have a look at my transfer plans going into game week 21 then, and I feel quite fortunate that I've only got 3 unavailable players. Other managers are in a far worse situation. 750,000 managers transferred Bowen in before he got injured in the FA Cup, which has ruled him out of game week 21. So that's why we don't make these early transfers. So I've got Trent that's got a knee injury. I've got Salah at the African Cup of Nations. I've got Son at the Asia Cup. They're my big concerns at the moment. Now, I do have a route back to Haaland by selling Salah. I could also get Foden into my midfield if I did that. So that's a contender. I could also just replace Trent, which would be a simple move, but I'm actually looking at something different. In terms of the 11 players, outfield players that I've got remaining, Livramento is the weak link. I can't trust him to start for Newcastle United. I've got 1.9 million in the bank, so I can afford to upgrade him. And this is a move that I'm looking to make this week, and that will allow me to bring in Estupinan, who is back from injury for Brighton. Got 11 points in the reverse fixture against Wolves. I think he's got 5 or 6 attacking returns in not quite as many starts. He's kind of matching Trent for attacking output this season. Obviously, no clean sheets for Brighton is a concern, but I do think from attacking threat, especially with Matoma out, he could be a great pick for the next few weeks. Some nice fixtures for Brighton in the long term as well. So that's the move that I'm going to make. That gives me time to get more information on Trent, who could be back for game week 22. Also time to find out whether Salah and Son are going deep into these international tournaments, and also helps me to plan my chip strategy going forward, rolling 1 free transfer into game week 22. Team selection time then, and not many big decisions to make here because of those players that are unavailable. Between my goalkeepers, it was Martinez v Flekken. It is Martinez who is going to get the nod as Aston Villa go to Everton away over Flekken, who's got Forest at home. It was a tight call, but Martinez is the number one goalkeeper in my side, and I am planning to play him pretty much every game week. Everton, not an easy side to face, but I do think Aston Villa are fixture-proof right now. It's a back four then of Estupiñán, the new signing against Wolves at home, along with Porro, Saliba and Gusto, with Trent, of course, on the bench. And then in the midfield, we've got Gordon, Saka and Palmer, with Archer, Watkins and Darwin up front. That gives me a team rating of 91% on Fantasy Football Hub. Predicted points, 55.6 points. My recommended transfer for this week was to go from Son to Foden. But I just worry about Foden long term, especially with De Bruyne waiting in the wings to come back into this City side, which is why I'm not personally prepared to make that move this week. But you can get your own team rating and AI recommended transfers with a 30-day free trial, which ends tomorrow, using the link in the description to this video. When it comes to captaincy then, it's got to be a player that plays on the first weekend for me. I like a home game as well. So if we narrow it down, the options are thin on the ground. Obviously, if Haaland was available, it would make things far easier. I have got Watkins away at Villa, who is a potential contender. Saka at home to Crystal Palace would be a good pick if he had a fixture this weekend, but that comes next weekend. So the one that I'm leaning to at the moment is Palmer at home to Fulham. Probably a little bit more of a differential pick than some, but I like his form. I like the fact that he's on pens. I like the fixture as well. So I'm prepared to stick my neck out and go with Palmer captain, Saka as vice. Hopefully I can survive this game week, but be in a really strong position going forward with those 2 free transfers and all that information that we need. I'm sure you've got lots of dilemmas, so make sure you get in the comments. I'll do my best to answer as many of those as I can, and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the notify button as well, because I'll be live probably around 12:30 tomorrow for the press conference stream with updates on Haaland, hopefully some more nuggets on Bowen and Trent, and also on Friday at 5 p.m, an hour and 15 minutes before that Friday deadline. Do not miss it. I'll have the deadline stream. The links for both of those are in the description so that you do not miss them. Thank you so much for watching.